Okay, so this is the joke. Yeah, you got the fat belly. Yeah, I said the word fat. And you got happy Hanukkah. And you got some dogs. Everyone loves dogs with something. Okay. Anyway, you've had fun? That was my introduction to get your attention. Or maybe to lose your attention. No, I'm not sure. We'll see. So, I want to get into the Kabbalah of... You can put the papers aside now. I want to get into the Kabbalah, or don't, whatever, wherever you want. It's not school. So I want to get into the Kabbalah of Chanukah. So we all know that a lot of what we do surrounds around Kiddush, taking grape juice and putting it in a cup and saying to everyone, hey, stand up, and now we're doing Kiddush. And then we do Havdalah, so that's again with grape juice or Manischewitz, or if you're proper, you'll use wine, right? And then in weddings, we use that too, right? Right? And then in weddings, you'll use wine too. We use Kiddush a lot. So what is the depth behind that? And I want to get from there into the idea of Chanukah. So I'm taking this from a big Kabbalist who was called the Ben Ish Chai, which means the living man. And he lived in Iraq not too long ago, a good 60 years ago. But his writings is very Kabbalistic. And he takes a lot of the Kabbalah from other teachers and puts it into his books, in books of halakha, of law. And he goes through numbers and really interesting stuff. So it's really a book of how to do Chanukah. Okay, so where to put your menorah and where to do this and where to. But at the beginning of each section, he has a whole Kabbalah section on it. Okay, so I want to take you through the Kabbalah of Chanukah, some really mind-blowing stuff. So we all know that grapes is something we use for Kiddush. Anyone know why? Why grapes? Why grape? Why wine? Why not milk? Milk's pretty meaningful.
Wine gets you
comes
happy.
from. Okay, we're all about getting happy, l'chaim, right? So maybe, but what? Anything else? Okay, wine makes you happy. Judaism wants you to be happy. Probably not through external substances. Can you imagine, like, hey, yo, take a smoke, you'll get happy. Right? That's good Judaism. Or take a drink. Hey, right? So Judaism wants you to have fun. Yes, be happy internally, not through other substances. That's for sure. So why would Judaism want you to do Kiddush with wine and not milk, and not with orange juice or coffee on Shabbat, Friday night? Anyone know? Why grape juice? Why wine? We spoke about this time. I found a Kabbalistic source to this. Okay? So I'm going to take you through some of the ideas of why we use wine. Okay? First is, it's one of the only fruits that comes as a group. Whenever you say grape, you never say I'm having a grape. You say I'm having grapes, right? It comes as a bundle. It comes as a group. And what it's meant to teach us is that the Jewish people are compared to the grapes, that we only succeed when we're as one people. The minute we separate, and by the way, no two grapes look alike, right? They look alike, but they're not always the same size, right? They are all different. Each grape is unique. So we are unique in our own way, but at the end of the day, we come as groups, right? You get a bundle of grapes. So that's the very first thing. But there's much more to it, okay? The second thing is, when it's pressed into juice, it produces something better. When you work on yourself, you produce something better. And the message there as well is that the Jewish people are compared to the grapes, because unless you actually press on yourself, unless you work on yourself, and sometimes it's through challenges that we go through, whether it's anti-Semitism or things like that as well. But they bring out the best in us, okay? So when we are, so to speak, pushed, and when we push ourselves, when we work hard, then we can be a successful nation. If we don't work hard, we won't be a successful nation. So that's another reason. But I want to get really into the depth of what I'm trying to say, which is taken from the Ben Ish Chai. So he says that another thing is, if you notice, the tree well, it's not really a tree, but the vine, right? What holds the grapes is extremely weak. It's nothing. It doesn't make sense how it holds the grapes. It's so thin and minute. It has no strength. Yet it produces an amazing fruit. Okay, well, expensive fruits. These fruits can give you a lot. So you've got something which has no branch, but gives you such good produce. And what does that teach me? That we are what we call not a weak nation, but we're a small nation. We're very small. We're always a minority. Throughout history, we've always been a minority, but look what we've produced. Look what we've given to the world. Right? There's no question about it. Even if you say, hey, I don't believe in the whole Jewish story, I tell them, do you believe that the Jewish people are powerful? So people say, yeah, I mean, I do. 25% of Nobel Prizes, that's something. Yeah, but I don't believe in the godly thing of it. Well, something's going on. Because, we're doing pretty well and the odds are against us and it's throughout history. We shouldn't be here. Never mind be successful. Never mind survive what we survived and still be successful. Never mind the country of Israel, right? Which has in a place which has no reason to succeed. Every country around it wants to destroy it, but yet somehow it's flourishing and it's succeeding in ways that can't be described. Right? Everyone's trying to understand what's going on. So here we have something which is what seems or appears so small, but yet so effective. So that's another reason why the Jewish people are compared to the grapes. There's another reason, this you may not know, unless you work in a vine, but grapes are the only fruits, one of the only fruits. I'm only saying one of, in case someone says not true, right? But it's one of the only fruits that doesn't mix with other fruits. So you can actually take fruits and combine them together, right? That's actually a kilayim. It's a law in Judaism that we're not meant to do that. But you could actually take fruits and mix them together and get a different type of fruit, okay? Like a pear is a mix of two different fruits, I think, right? Is it?
A pear? Hybrid or citrus?
Or citrus? Is citrus a hybrid?
Clementines.
Clementine. Oh yeah? A watermelon is? It's a mix of two. Lemon. Really? Oh, I never knew that. Which is much dark. Oh wow. So here we go. We have this many hybrid fruits. You're allowed to eat them. We're allowed to eat them. We're not allowed to plant them. Okay, we're allowed to eat them. But we shouldn't be planting them. That's another discussion. It's really cool stuff of why we don't do that, but that's another discussion. So, here goes. Grapes don't mix with other fruit. You try and mix it, it just doesn't work. It won't give you another type of fruit. It just won't mix. And it stays on its own. And what does that teach me? We have a commandment in the Torah, Hen'am, which is against all odds. Right? Hen'am levadod yishkon. We are a nation that will always dwell alone. That doesn't mean that we will be alone in a house with myself and my phone, right? But it means that I'll be with people, yes. But Hen'am levadod yishkon means we will always carry our name alone. Meaning, in order to stay Jewish, you've got to marry Jewish, and that will continue. If you choose not to, fine, but we will still exist as a people, and that will come from those that choose to stay alone. If you choose not to stay alone, you won't be. You can still say you're Jewish, but 2 or 3 generations down, your children won't say they're Jewish, most likely. And if they do, another 2 or 3 generations down, their children most likely won't say they're Jewish. Okay? It's pretty simple. If you marry someone who's not Jewish, you've got half the chances of having a child that's going to want to be Jewish. It's like maths. 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 0. Right. Okay. So it's just pretty simple. So the same idea is with grapes. It doesn't mix with other fruits. Oh, I can't believe you said that. Right. Never mind. Right. It doesn't mix with other fruits, and that's what it says. Hen'am levadad yishkon. Another thing it says Levilti yidach mimenu yidach, which means that no matter how bad a Jew goes, at the end of the day, we'll never be washed out completely. We have a rule that no matter how far you go, even if you get the worst of the worst, you think that you've completely given up all your Judaism. We also have something called reincarnation. You'll never go. You'll never disappear. You always come back. Sorry. Right? So there's the next one. And this is really the Kabbalistic stuff that I wanted to get to. Okay? The grape in the Torah, when it mentions it, and it's actually in this week's Torah portion, in the dreams that Joseph has to interpret, it's represented in 3 different parts. Okay? This is crazy stuff. We're getting into Kabbalah now, but I think you'll really enjoy it once you get the idea. Because the message is so powerful, I think you can gain something really powerful. Okay, so it says in the Torah, don't fall asleep on me, it says, on the vine, this was a dream. It's okay, so Joseph is in prison, and there's this guy who is a butler, and he works in the king's palace, and he serves wine, and he messed up, right? You remember the story? So Pharaoh throws him in jail, and Joseph's with him, and he interprets a dream for him. The guy says, listen, I have a dream. And what's the dream? He says, listen, I had this dream. It was grapes, and there was 3 branches of grapes. Okay, so there's 3, not clusters, 3 parts to the grapes, right? And vihi kaporachet. So there was 3 parts, and then he says like this: it was almost budding, and then it started to blossom, and then it ripened into grapes. So he said 3 parts to this. Not on that paper, it's on another paper here. I'll give it to you in a minute. Right, he says 3 parts to this story, okay? First there was these grapes in 3 parts, and then it went with little buds, and then it came out into blossoms, into little flowers, and then it grew into grapes in my dream. So it was like a hyperlapse. Today we can understand it. Can you imagine? Hyperlapse? You're sleeping? I love hyperlapse recently on my videos. So you're sleeping, and you have this dream. It's like this grape just suddenly coming into grapes. Okay, that makes sense. Today we can understand such a dream. Back in the day they were like, what's this Torah talking about? What kind of dream is that? Right, nowadays we can understand, fast forward. Okay, so he had this dream, 3 branches, and there was 3 stages that he saw. First it was barely budding, then it came into blossoms, and then it clustered into ripened grapes. Okay, ripe grapes. So now here is the message, the Kabbalistic message of what the grape represents, okay, in this story. It represents the 3 parts to us, okay? We understand that there's 3 areas of the soul. Stay with me, this is good stuff. There's 3 areas of the soul. There's what we call nefesh, ruach, and neshama, okay? What's the neshama? The soul. What's the ruach? Spirit. The spirit. It's another word for soul, right? And what's nefesh?
Soul.
Also soul. Like, what's going on? There's many words, okay? So I want to take you into really making you understand that there's 3 parts to where our soul is, our inner self is, and we're gonna try and translate that and see what it really means, okay? So this represents the 3 areas that we work. We have thoughts in our mind, right? You all have thoughts that get in your head. Hey, this is awesome. Or, hey, I don't like this person. Or I do. Right? So there's thoughts in our mind. That's machshava. That area of thought is where your neshama rests. Okay? That's also to do with your soul, but that's where the neshama rests. Then we have something called ruach, which is the spirit. What does ruach also mean? Wind. Right? So we have something called the wind. And that's when you speak. Okay? When you speak, speech is the area, the spiritual part of you that has what we call ruach. There's this air that keeps coming in and out of your body. That is represented in what we call ruach. So you've got the mind, which represents the neshama. Then you have the ruach, which is the air that comes out your mouth. And then we have the nefesh. The nefesh is in your blood. Ki hadam hu nefesh. The nefesh is in your blood, and that represents your actions. So we have the mind, speech, and action. Mind, speech, and action. Okay? Now I want to take you through those 3 stages. Because when we think of these 3 stages, we can get into Hanukkah on another level. Okay, so there are, what we said, these 3 stages of growth that I told you. First, in this dream, this guy saw that the flowers were starting to bud. Then he saw that the blossoms came out, and then he saw that it was ripe. Okay? Well, when it's about to bud, what do you think that represents of those 3 things that I said? Do you think it represents the mind? Do you think it represents speech? Or do you think it represents the action? It's about to bud. You just see a little budding on the tree. The mind. Nothing's happened yet. It's just an idea. Okay? The tree or the vine is starting to give off signs. Okay? It's like synaptic connections coming out your brain, like, right? So that's the buds that are coming out of the vine. Okay? Then comes the next section, which is what did it say? It says, then it started blossoming. What do you think that means? Blossoming. That's Ruach, that's the wind, okay? Because nothing yet is ready, but it's just something which we can actually connect to. So at the beginning, it's just the bud. Then you've actually got a blossom. Okay, something's coming out, something's speaking, something's connecting to me, something's talking to me. And finally, you have the actual fruit. And what does that represent? The actions, okay? Finally, the action comes to fruition. Okay, so you have these 3 areas. And by the way, these 3 areas are the 3 areas that we grow in. First, we think to ourselves in our mind, oh my gosh, I need to be better in this area. Right? I need to change in this area. Then we say to ourselves, okay, I'm going to speak about it. I'm going to talk to myself about it. I'm going to talk to others about it. Try and get help about it. Right? I'm going to talk it to others. Whatever it is, you first have the idea, then you speak it out. If you don't speak it out, it's never going to happen. And then comes the action where you actually do it. Okay? That's the final section of your mind. And that actually has also in Teshuvah process, it has 3 areas as well. When you want to come better as a person, there's 3 areas. First you say, okay, I want to improve myself. And that's just the Hirhur HaLev, that's the first thought in your mind. Then the second stage of growth in a person is saying, hey, I want to change, but it's only I want to change because something is telling me or making me feel not good, but it's not really from the true reasons. And then finally when I blossom, when I come into a fruit, that's when I really enjoy the person that I am now and the person that I've changed into being. Okay? So there's these 3 stages that we all grow in, and these are the 3 stages of spirituality, so to speak, where we are seen spiritually in ourselves. We either the way we speak, the way we think, right? Or the way we act. You are defined by the way you act, by the way you think, or the way you speak. Oh, if you start cursing all the time, so, it tells me something about you, because it tells me what you're thinking in your mind. It tells me how you're feeling in your heart. It tells me, no, but, I'm not thinking of what those words actually mean, Rabbi. It's just, that's the way we speak. Yeah, but it still has an effect on who you are. It defines you. You would never see the Queen of England, hey, mother, right? And so on and so forth. She wouldn't do it because it doesn't represent what she stands for. Okay? And you wouldn't see me doing that either. Yeah.
So, for the Ruach, does that have anything to do with also the symbolism of, like, they say the breath of God, like Yahweh, the mysticism as well? Like, when you breathe the breath of God, God breathes His likeness into you, and then when you pass, it comes out.
Yes.
It kind of reminded me of that.
Yes, and that actually says that when it says, this is getting a bit into, don't want to take everyone off the topic, but it says that when God breathed into him the spirit, the neshama, so it says, the soul, it says in Tirgum, Ruach memalala, he got a speaking spirit, which means that he was given the ability to speak. So Ruach always represents speech. Anyway, I just wanted to take you into those 3 areas, because those are the 3 areas we always grow in. Those are the 3 areas that define you. Okay? The way you think tells me who you are. Oh, that's what you're thinking about. That's what's on his mind, right? Sorry, right? But that's what she's thinking about. That's what they're thinking about. Or That's what they're talking about. They're always talking about money. So you know, right, where that person is spiritually. Right? The way you talk, the way you think, and the way you act proves on where you're holding as a person on a spiritual level. Make sense? Okay. So now, let's get into Hanukkah. Look at this. Hanukkah is all about lights and candles. Okay? Candles, lights. Right? We light the candles. We won a war, but we still light the candles. All about the candles. Now here goes the crazy stuff about the candle. Okay? And by the way, we say, listen to this proverb statement, Ner mitzvah v'torah, or a mitzvah, a commandment, is compared to a candle. A Torah is compared to the light of the candle. It's a light. Okay? And it also says, Ner Hashem nishmat Adam, the human being is considered like a candle as well of God. So you see that Torah is compared to a light. Mitzvah, doing a good deed, is compared to a light. And a human being is compared to a light. Does anyone see how those represent those three that I mentioned? Right? What do you think mitzvah represents? The actions, right? A good deed represents the action. You give charity, that's the action of you. What does Torah represent? The mind. The mind. And the human represents the speaker. Okay? That's the speech, because that's what we do. Uniquely in our way is that we speak. Okay? Make sense? Now, listen to the idea that I want to take you to. So, a candle has 3 zones, or 3 coloring zones within it. Okay? It's what we call the blue zone. There's a dark area. Right? Have you ever looked carefully at a candle? There's like a little dark area. And then there's the luminous, I don't know how you say that properly, right, area, right? There's another area with light on top of it. If you look carefully at the candle, the flame itself, congratulations. The flame, no, that's what you say when something breaks, right? Mazel tov. Right. So, thanks, Dan. So, the flame, I'm trying to give a Kabbalah class, right? So the flame has 3 parts. The flame has 3 parts or shades to it. There's the light, there's the darker area, further down, and there's like a bluish area underneath the flame. Make sense? Okay. Also, the candle has 3 parts to it. Does anyone know? Wax or oil, right? Yeah? I said candle, right? Yeah, go on. The wick.
And then the light.
And the flame. Okay? Without any of those, what would happen?
It wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work. You take away any of those, the power of the flame would not exist. You take away the dark area of the flame, somehow, you wouldn't have the flame. If you took away the colorful area, you wouldn't have the flame. It needs all of those 3 to be a flame. And what does that represent? When it says that the grapes were in 3 parts, it represents the Jewish people, that we need to be growing in those 3 areas. You cannot be growing just in your mind and not in your actions. It's like saying, hey, I'm good in my heart, but I don't really do anything about it. You know, it's like those people that run around saying we should all give charity. We should be peaceful. Right? Let's do more peaceful things. They've not given one charity for 20 years. Right? And all day long they talk to everyone about how we should be more peaceful. Asking everyone else to be. You can't do that. You've got to be as true in your mind, or growing in your mind, but also growing in action. You've got to be growing in action, but you also must be growing in your words, in the way you speak. Okay? They all interact with each other. These are all areas that we need to grow. So,
can you repeat the 3 parts to the grape again?
So the grape actually doesn't have 3 parts, but in the area of the Torah that it mentions the grapes, right? It is labeled in 3 different areas, and then it also talks about the 3 stages of growth of the grape. First is the budding, then the blossoming, then the actual fruit. Okay? That actually happens in all fruits. But in this area where it's talking about the grapes, again, it always splits into those 3 areas. And they represent, in Kabbalah, the nefesh, the ruach, and the neshama. Okay? Those 3 parts of our spiritual self that we need to grow in. So, what does this have to do with Hanukkah? I'll tell you what it has to do with Hanukkah. Hanukkah is about lights. Okay, that's lots of lights. Right? Hanukkah is about lights. But Jonathan. Hanukkah is also about... This is where Dan's donation money went to. No, no. Right, Hanukkah is also about something else. It's also about growing in three. It's about growing in three areas. Because what did the Greeks do? What did the Greeks try to do?
Take the Torah from us and kill us all.
No, they didn't want to kill us all.
Assimilate us.
Dang. What did they want to do?
Destroy the temple.
Assimilate us.
They didn't want to destroy the temple.
They wanted to take away our Judaism.
Assimilate us.
They wanted to bankrupt us.
They didn't want to assimilate us. Well, in some ways, but what they really wanted to do,
Kill the spirit.
they wanted to take away this. They loved our wisdom. They were the first to make us translate the Torah into Greek. Right? They loved what we stood for. They loved the Torah, but they didn't like the fact that we kept it. You see, they loved the idea of it, but they didn't like the action of it. They didn't like that we took it seriously. It's great wisdom, but we like all wisdom. We like all, and they took a lot of our wisdom for themselves. Everything that fit their agenda. But if it didn't fit their agenda, what did they say? Goodbye with it, right? There were three things mainly that they forbade on the Jewish people. Does anyone know what they are? There's three main things, yeah? Milah, which is circumcision.
Learning Torah.
Torah was one of them, yeah? Shabbat.
Sanctifying the moon.
Sanctifying the moon. Okay, making a new celebration of the new month of the moon. Why were they strict about those things? And by the way, they didn't want public study of Torah. They wanted to translate this Torah into their own way, but they didn't want us to publicly study it and teach it in the way that we taught it, which is that we studied it, but also put it into words and action. They liked the wisdom of it, but they didn't like the fact that we lived with it. Okay? So that is against what the Jewish people stand for. We are the people that stand for wisdom, but much greater than the wisdom itself, that's what it says, is the action. It's all very good to have a great knowledge of information in your head, but if you don't do anything with it, it doesn't mean anything. Okay? It's much greater to have more actions within you than wisdom within you. Make sense? Okay. So here goes a crazy thing. The word Chanukah. Why does Chanukah mean Chanukah? Does anyone know what does Chanukah really mean?
They rested on the 15th, or 25th, sorry.
Okay, one of the definitions of Chanukah means they rested from what?
The war.
War. The war ended on the 25th. And Chanukah starts on the 25th of the month. Okay? Now, what's crazy is if you go to the Torah and you count 25 words into the Torah, you count Bereshit, bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, that's 7. Va'aretz hayta tohu v'vohu v'choshech ha'pnei tehom v'ruach Elohim archefet ha'pnei hamayim v'yom Elokim yehiyo. If you get to the word or, light, that is the 25th word in the Torah. Interesting. Not only is that the 25th word, but the word before or, which means light, is called Yehi. Does anyone know how to spell Yehi? Let there be light. Okay? Let there be. Does anyone know how to spell that? Yud, Hey, Yud. You know that letters have numerical values to them.
25.
It's 25. So the letter before or is 25. And what it's... This is the Ben Ish Chai. He says it all here. You read Hebrew, so this is all from Kabbalah. And what it represents is the fact that the real, true definition of light, which is where you're connected in the mind as much as you are in action, as you are in speech, is all hidden in the Torah. That the real definition of light is spiritual light, is when you see somebody who's true to the word that he says, who's true to his mind, and he's true to his action. It's very hard. It's almost impossible to find someone like that, who's absolutely true in all those areas. But those are the areas that we need to all grow in, and those were the areas that the that the Greeks didn't want us to grow in. Now here goes a bit more crazy stuff. Okay? The three main things that they publicly did not allow was Shabbat, Milah, which is circumcision, and the sanctification of the new moon. They weren't stupid people, the Greeks. They knew what they were doing. And they didn't like us in those three areas. What's so bad about Shabbat? It's quite nice to put your phone away for 25 hours, right? What's so bad about sanctifying the new moon? And I'm going to leave Brit Milah to the end, right? What's so bad about sanctifying the new moon, right? What's so bad? So we say, hey, new moon, and la, 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 la. What's wrong? Well, let's eat, we always eat. So what's wrong with that? Why did that bother them? And why did it bother them, the fact that we had Brit Milah, besides for the fact it hurts our babies, not theirs? And by the way, infanticide was a thing back then. So if you think circumcision was bad because of hygienic issues back in those days, well, they were throwing kids away saying, hey, this is a girl, I want a boy, so let's throw it down the toilet. This is how they used to live. Infanticide was a normal thing in Greek culture. So if you think that circumcision was a moral thing that they didn't like because they said it's painful, which it isn't, because I don't remember it, right? So, but if they say it's painful, so there you go. Sorry.
No, it's hilarious.
Okay. Listen, I'm very open. Listen, I am Jewish, right? Anyway,
I don't remember.
I could take this further, but I wouldn't want to go down there.
I don't remember.
I was once in a pool, swimming pool, and there was this guy. He's looking at me. He's like, "Ah, where are you from?" I'm saying, "Yeah, I'm from here." I was in Newcastle, in American English, and it was like a really cool spa. They had like an hour or two, which is guys only. I don't know, they don't do that here, but anyway, so it's Jewish enough for me, and I went. So I went in there, and it was after a good workout, and we went to sit there. And then I'm not wearing a kippah. I wear a kippah all the time, but not when I go in the pool. Okay, so I was not wearing a kippah, and the guy's like, "Where are you from?" Within no time, he realized. I told him, because I'm very proud of my Jewishness, that I'm Jewish. So he just looks at me. He's like, "Oh," there's like 10 people around. He's like, "I've also been circumcised." And I was like, "Wow, dude, Shabbat Shalom." Never mind that he had his tattoos, everything all over. But never mind. So anyway, moving on. Hanukkah in Hebrew is Chanukah, which means that they rested on the 25th of the month. 25th word. Now here goes the crazy thing. If you take Chodesh, Milah, and Shabbat, which are the three things they didn't like us to do, and I'll tell you why they didn't like us to do it. Those three things, Chodesh, Milah, and Shabbat, add up to Chamesh. Right? The acronym of those three, Chet, Mem, and Shin, is Chamesh, which means 5. Why? Because, which, by the way, Chamesh in also means Mashach, which means oil. That's another different reason. But Chamesh represents the 5 books of Moses, which represents the Torah. Okay? And hidden in this idea is that the Torah is only real when it's with action. Okay? When you have Torah, that's good. But you also have to have Chodesh, Milah, and you have to have Shabbat. Those three things come together with the study. You can't say, "Oh, I'm studying about Shabbat, but I'm not really doing it now. I would want my kids someday to do Shabbat, but I'm not doing it right now. It's too much for me." Okay, do an hour, maybe 2 hours, at least something, right? No, I don't do it. So it's good enough to say I don't do it, but then you can't say I want my kids and grandkids to want to do it. If you're not going to do it, they ain't going to do it, right? You've got to have actions together with mind. You've got to have speech. You've got to speak the things that you want in your mind. You can't say, hey, I want my family to be more Jewish when you ain't doing not much Jewish yourself, right? If you want your child to be more Jewish, don't just throw him in Hebrew school. That's just guilt, right? You've got to throw him into Jewish homeschool, which is which is being more Jewish in your home. That's all, right? Hebrew school is a good plus, but not when you're doing nothing at home, which is Jewish, and then he's going into school and they're like, Torah, yay! And he's like, what is this thing? It's just a scroll, which it looks ancient. And their parents never talk about it. And no one never it's not going to work. It's not going to last. So you've got to have the celebration of it in your own home. And that's really the idea. Okay? So Chodesh, Milah, and Shabbat, what do they represent? They represent the action, the mind, and the thought. Okay? The mind and the speech. Okay? Milah represents action. Shabbat represents the... I'm getting confused. Shabbat represents the mind, and the month represents the speech. And I'll tell you also why. Now, one of the things that the Greeks didn't like was that we have the power to influence the natural world. If you think about it, Chodesh, sanctifying the new moon means we dictate when the new month is going to be. How can you do that? Nature dictates when the new moon is meant to be. Yet it's true that the nature does, but it kind of changes in its own way, right? It's always 29 and a half days, so you have to move it a bit. So they never understood how it is that we have the power to change the physical reality. They said the physical is everything. Milah, circumcision, represents humans' ability to change the physical world. That's what it represents. We come into this world in a certain way, and we say, hey, we have the power to change the way that we are in this world. We have the power to change over time. We so to speak, born with a certain imperfection, but we have the power to change this world. And Shabbat means that we have the power to match the actions of God. Just like God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh, we have the power to be like God, which is to manipulate and change this world. When you do something in this world, it affects your children. This is actually something proven scientifically. It's called epigenetics, and it literally is the fact that you have the ability to change the DNA and the genes of your children. I don't know about DNA, but the genes, the genetics of your children can be changed by the way that you act in this world. Yes, you were given a certain gene and a certain DNA, but the way that you act throughout time in this world will actually affect how your child is going to be. Will he be more calm? Will he be more angry? Will he be more happy? You actually have the power to change and affect your child. Now, Judaism always believed that, but the Greeks didn't. They said, we do not have the power to change the physical reality. We can build things, but we don't have the power to change the physical. We believe that we can. And today, scientifically, this has been proven very much so. So these are the three things they said changes the fabrics of the world. Shabbat, Milah, and Chodesh. And they said, no, I don't like that. I like your wisdom, but don't tell me it changes the universe, that this Torah is like that big, that it changes the world. And that's what this represents. So, what is the message and what did we fight for? We fought for three things. Okay? We fought to be able to have the wisdom, but equally the mind, the mind, but equally the actions and equally the speech. That's what we fought for. The Greeks, by the way, they said the exact opposite. They said, okay, we like your wisdom, but we don't want your actions, we don't want your mind. And that is all hidden in this idea of Hanukkah. So we light the candle, which represents those three things. It represents bringing light into the world, which is bringing what type of light into the world? The light of growth in your mind as much as your actions and as much as your words. Okay? These are the areas where spirituality rests. So that was the introduction. I've not even gone through everything. I'm just joking. Okay, so I'm going to just go quickly through some of the laws of Hanukkah. You ready? Just quickly go through the how-tos of Hanukkah. Someone told me, hey, I heard that Hanukkah is not really a thing. it's not really a big thing. It's just like a nice thing we do. Well, listen, it's a very important holiday that we have. And it's shown and hidden in I've just given you one area of where Kabbalah talks about Hanukkah, but it's shown in many areas of the Torah. You'll see that hidden in it is the story of Hanukkah. So don't tell me that it's not just a thing, and don't tell me it's not just a thing because you have no excuse now. Everyone's on vacation anyway, and everyone's doing their own holiday. At least we get 8 days of it. Come on, let's go. Okay, fine, you don't want the calories? Fine, so make yourself a coconut oil donut. It's good. I did that once, it was terrible. No, coconut oil latkes. A few years ago when I went on a serious diet, I made coconut oil latkes. It was so, it's literally, you can go like this and it's great. Okay, and then eat it. Okay, so here let's go through some of the laws of Hanukkah, because if you're anyway going to do it, you may as well make sure you do it properly. First thing is, you got to make sure you put it in an area which is visible to who? To the public. Okay, so either by the window or by the door. Hey, make sure it's safe for fire safety, but that's not me. Speak to your local 911, FDA or whatever, right? Okay, but make sure it's placed in an area that's public. Why do we make Hanukkah public? Anyone know? Or anyone can think of a name?
Miracle, right?
We want to share the miracle, but there's many miracles. Why specifically Hanukkah? What did they try to destroy? Did they try to kill us? What did I say just before? Did they try and kill us?
They tried to take away our light.
They wanted to take away our light, our wisdom. They liked our wisdom, that's all they liked, but they didn't want us to stick to it. They didn't want us to be committed to it. Okay? So they wanted to take away our spiritual identity. They loved and they wanted us to continue to exist. They didn't want our spiritual stuff that we had standing for. Okay? They wanted to destroy that. How do you fight it?
You put a mezuzah on the door and you put a menorah in the window.
What does that tell? Yeah, exactly. What does that teach the world?
And we're proud to be Jewish.
We're proud. Pride is the greatest answer to a society that denies your spiritual identity. Okay? So in a place where they want to just kill you for being Jewish, then you've got to be careful about your pride. But in a place where they actually say, hey, I know you're Jewish, and this could be Jews too, friends of yours, they could say, hey, I know that you're all Jewish and all, but it's all stupid anyway. How are you meant to respond to them? Dude, this stuff is awesome. They're like, what? How is he so into it? He's on fire, right? Why is he so lit? Right? How is he so lit? Right? That's the way you respond. If anyone ever, and this is good, this is an important lesson for all areas in work as well. If someone ever questions anything you're doing, if you don't respond with confidence, they will continue to question you. And eventually, dude, what's with that business deal that you're doing? Dude, this thing is amazing. The way you sell yourself is the way that people are going to buy you. Okay, you've got to be confident. If you're not confident, you won't get anywhere. People won't believe in your story. And this is good in business, but it's also good with your own internal spiritual identity. If you believe that something is good for you spiritually, why are you so involved with the Jewish community? Do Shabbats and all. You don't understand. You have to come to believe it. It's awesome. There's a community. We have friends. It's amazing, right? Just come to aid right now, right? So that's what you're meant to do. Is in a place where people are denying your identity, fight it with more pride. Because when you have confidence, they are people right now that are confused. But when you react to them with confidence, what are you doing? You're showing them, hey, listen, I've got it figured out. You seem confused, but I got it all figured out. And then they're like, wow, this guy knows what he's doing. He's confident. So if you're doing something, be confident about it. Be enthusiastic about it. Show excitement about it. It's really important, especially in areas where people question you. Okay, that's the first. I'm teaching you 8 different laws of Hanukkah. Number 2 is, you can't put the Chanukah on the floor. Because it's not safe, but that's not the reason. It's got to be above the floor of 30 centimeters at least. It's probably better to put it a bit higher than that. But at least above 30 centimeters from the floor. Why? Because then it's recognized that you're doing it for something else. You're not just doing it for fun. Why would you light candles on the floor for fun? I don't know. But you have to do it above the floor, because back in the day, they used to light candles all the time, and it could be just a romantic situation that you're lighting candles on the floor. But you want it to be above 30 centimeters at least. Okay, make sure it's above the ground. Here's another one. For the first half an hour that you light it, you can't move it after. Did you know this? After you light the Chanukah and it's lit, right? Hadlaka osa mitzvah. Once you light it, don't move it for the first half an hour. You shouldn't move it in general, but at least for the first half an hour, don't move the Chanukah. Why? Because the mitzvah, we said, is the lighting. Lahadlik ner shel Chanukah. The mitzvah is the lighting. And throughout that time, that is all a continuous act of that lighting. So if you move it now, so you've just taken away the act of lighting. Why half an hour? Because half an hour is the specific time that we need to publicize it. There's a certain time where there's more traffic in the street, at least back in the day, and that was called from the time that it gets dark for another half an hour after, which is when people are getting back from the market. You know, it gets dark, and then what happens? Is it worth being in the market when it's all dark? No, everyone goes back home. So suddenly you see flocks of people on their way home. Now, it makes sense, around 5 o'clock, 5:10, not Shabbat, right? It gets dark. So already from that time, you should light the candles and light Chanukah. Okay, if you are in work and you can't light the Chanukah, what should you do? Just say, oh, forget it. I'm tired anyway. What should you do?
Do it when you get home.
Do it when you get home. You can do it later. Okay? It's not that you have to do it at the time that it gets dark, but it's better to do it when it gets dark. Okay?
Question, what happens if you forget to light it by the window and then you're like, oh shoot, I forgot to, can you move it at that point?
So, if you forgot, and where did you light it?
Like,
Kitchen.
yeah.
In the kitchen?
Not near a window.
So, what you should do is blow it out, put it by the window, and light it without a blessing. It's better that it's by the window, and light it with the... But if you, by the way, if you have nowhere with windows, and you just have no windows in your house, and you're just in like an apartment, or you're in a hotel and you can't really do it by the windows, so you can do it anywhere. It's not that it's the main thing. The main thing is that you light the candle. Okay? But it is important that it's done in a way where you're publicly doing. By the way, even if no one's on the street and you're like, hey, no one's on the street, it's not like I'm publicly telling anyone. It doesn't matter, it's for you. It's really for you. Your mindset is that, hey, I'm publicly saying that I'm proud to be who I am. I don't care what people think, and I'm going to light this thing. Right? So that's the idea. So you're actually making a public statement in your mind as well. You have to put enough oil that would last for half an hour. And by the way, it's better to use oil. Okay? You meant to, don't use some oil on some candles. If you're using only candles, then use only candles. If you're using only oil, do only oil. Because that way, people won't be confused and saying, oh, there's two people lighting here. You want to make sure this is yours, and it's got your name on it. Right? Tal. Drori. Right? This is my Chanukah. So you want it to be all the same. Okay, I said already the time is after sunset, and you can light throughout the night. Or don't put it in a place where winds will just blow out. Put it right by the door where the wind is blowing. What's going to happen?
It's going to turn off.
Highlights.
Yeah, what's the wind going to do? It's just going to blow out. What's the point? Okay, so it's considered that you didn't really light it in the first place because you just put it in a place which was for sure going to put it out. So your initial lighting wasn't good. So don't do that. Put it in a place where there's not going to be wind, or don't open the windows just after you light it. Not smart. And if you did make that mistake and it got blown out, relight it without making another bracha. Okay? Another fact is, number 6, you can't use the candles for your benefit. You can't be like, hey, my electricity went out, so let's just hang out right by the candles and benefit from it. You're not meant to benefit from it. Why?
Takes away from the fact that it's intrinsically valuable.
Exactly. You're taking away the idea that it's valuable for its actual purpose, right? So you're doing it for Chanukah, and now you're using the candle for your own benefit. Oh, so maybe you aren't doing it for Chanukah. So you've got to designate it for Chanukah itself.
You use that for with Shabbat candles, can you use the light for light purposes?
Can you use the Shabbat candles? Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Shabbat candles you can, this you can't. Okay, you can't move the Shabbat candles, but you can use it, the light of it. Okay. Because Shabbat, the whole reason of Shabbat is to bring peace in the home. That's the whole idea of Shabbat candles. So that's the actual purpose of it, is to bring goodness to the home. Okay, that's another discussion. Okay, number 7 is, each day you add a candle. So day 1, how many do you light? 1. And the shamash, and the main one. Then day 2, 2. Then 3, 4. You go up. Why do we go up? I wrote this on the paper. Because you're always meant to grow in spirituality. Okay? You don't go down. If you're the same person as you were last year, what a shame. If you're the same person when you're 60, running after the same devices that you were when you were 20, then it's very sad to say, but you haven't grown. You haven't changed much. Okay, so you want to be a person that's spiritually growing all the time. If you're that same old, if you're that grandpa, and by the way, if you don't grow spiritually, you get worse. That's a rule. Right? You ever seen an angry old man, or right, with a stick? Right? It's like, oh my, imagine what, right? So what happens is it accumulates over the years. So if you don't work on yourself from a young age, it's just going to get worse as you get older. And our aim as Jews in this world is to grow spiritually. Every year you need to grow. So that's why we grow up in the number. Okay? So if you do grow up in number, so on day 2, which candle would you light? The second candle, the first one?
1, 2.
How do you do both at the same time? You're like, right? What is?
What's the first candle?
You start from the new one.
You start from the new one. Okay? Why from the new one? Because that's for this day. Right? So that's where you're growing. That's the day that you are growing in. Okay? So you'll have candle 1 on your right side, the furthest to the right, then candle 2, then candle 3, then 4, then 5. So on day 2 you'll go to 2, then 1. Also another reason is because we always turn to the right. It says, by the way, if you're ever confused, this is a good, interesting tidbit. Right, if you're ever confused of what direction to go, tifnei yamina, always direct yourself towards the right. Okay, this is a Kabbalistic idea, but we always move towards the right-hand side. Okay, there's always more chesed, more kindness and good on the right side, so you move to the right. So when you light the second one, you're moving back to the first one. The second one needs to be lit because that is the mitzvah of that day. Okay?
Can't that kind of be taken as like you're going backwards in life though, instead of like what you're explaining with like moving forward with Judaism?
It's true, you are, in some ways it seems that you're going back, but you're also going forward. It's a good question. But at the end of the day, you're also going forward because you're now 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Today is 3 lights. So you're really going forward. I've moved a step further. I'm now a step further.
I think when he said that, he was saying like why you increase the amount of candles every day. Not like the order that you light them.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Okay, so each day we light a candle starting with with lighting 1 on the right. On the second day you will light 2 on the right, and you light the candle of that day first. Now, what do you do on Shabbat? You've got the Shabbat candles. You also can light Shabbat candles in your house. You know that? It's nice. No, I don't want to. Why not? It doesn't hurt. It's a candle, right? So I don't know. I don't understand. It's only a candle. It's religious. It's a candle with oil. Just chill out. It's religious. It's a candle. Okay, so on Shabbat we light what? We light 2, right? And then on Hanukkah we light. Depends on the day, right? But on Chanukah Shabbat, how many would you light? Depends on the day. I'm not focused. Right? On Shabbat of Chanukah, what would you do first? The menorah or Shabbat?
Question.
Shabbat.
Think well.
Shabbat Shalom.
Hey!
Shabbat Shalom. Okay, you're right. Normally, you should do, we have a rule, Tadir v'she'en or Tadir kodem. What's more common and what's less common, you do what's more common first. Right? We have this rule. So if you had, right, you always do what's more common first. What's more common, Shabbat or Chanukah? Shabbat is every week. So what you should do, really you should be doing Shabbat first, then Hanukkah, but what's the problem if you light Shabbat candles?
You can't light candles when you can't light the menorah.
Can't light the menorah.
I knew it.
Thank you all, and I hope you enjoyed. There's some more stuff here you can take home. Enjoy Chanukah. It's my favorite holiday.